Hi guys, it's your girl here, Ada B, and welcome back to the Talks with Ada B show. If it's your first time here, my name is Ada B. I am a singer, songwriter, and presenter. And this is the Talks with Ada B show. This show was originally on YouTube. Um, and I had a few guests come on, specifically Black women who are in the creative industry, come on and share their experiences, share a bit about their story and how they got into the career that they're in. And that's women who are on screen and behind the scenes. So that is still very much part of what this platform advocates for. So do make sure that you follow the socials at Talks with Ada B over on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter as well. And also make sure that you hit the like button on this video, and you can also leave your comments. I would love to know what you think about the topics I'm going to discuss today and some of my opinions on them. And also make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to be notified when I upload next. So on this channel at the moment, you will see that there are some videos that were recorded last year. And it's because over the past 2 years, I've been on radio. And last year, I began recording the show. So there are visuals to go along with the live radio shows that I did last year. And I think it just adds a really fun dynamic to the conversation. You guys kind of get to see what was happening behind the scenes. So do make sure that you check those out as well after this stream. But today, as you can probably already tell by the title, I am going to be talking about so many different things. And if you don't know already, I like to talk about celebrity news, entertainment news, not just so that we can talk about, what's the tea. It's to reflect on what's happening within society and even with us personally as individuals and how we can grow and become the best versions of ourselves. So I always kind of see whatever happens like in entertainment news to celebrities as an opportunity to reflect, to introspect, not just to kiki and laugh. Even though some of the things they do be doing do be ridiculous and crazy and hilarious. So I'm going to kick things off with the news of Wes Nelson's health scare. So earlier this week on Tuesday, Wes Nelson, who is a UK singer, he was actually first kind of, I guess, rose to fame, featured on Love Island UK's 2018 series. Which was a great series to us, and I think is what really kind of sparked the rebranding and just genuine popularity of the show, because it was one of the more diverse casts and they were very dynamic. The characters were great. It made for great TV. It was great storytelling, and there were some good couples that came out of there. So Wes Nelson was part of that cast, and from there he began to pursue a music career, and he's actually pretty good. He's a pretty good singer. So he's released a few singles over the last couple of years, and he was set to go on tour starting last Friday. But on Tuesday, he came out and said that on his Instagram page, he came out and shared that he had a health scare. He was losing consciousness in his apartment, and luckily he was able to get the attention of his neighbors, and they were able to get him to the hospital, and he was able to have some tests run, etc., etc. So that was quite surprising. I mean, I haven't really kind of kept tabs on Wes Nelson per se, but I've definitely kind of seen his music and heard his music here and there. And as I said, the music is pretty good. He is quite a good singer. And I was surprised to even hear that he had a tour, but it was great to hear he's doing a UK tour. I think he's got like 32 dates. So to hear that he was having, a bit of a health scare and that he was losing consciousness in the apartment, and how many people that we've heard that have died in their apartments alone, I was kind of like, oh, that's quite scary. And he's young as well. I think he's in his mid-20s. So it was a bit like, gosh, what would bring that about? Now, reading some of the articles and the publications, there wasn't much information shared. On his story as well, he didn't really go into detail. He just sort of said, he ran a couple of tests and everything, was good to go. And he was cleared to be able to go ahead with his tour. I did do a little bit of digging online in terms of like the social media realm. And there were some people suggesting, the use and abuse of probably alcohol and drugs. And now we know that, it's not unfamiliar or unheard of, for a lot of celebrities and influencers to be, quite heavy users of drugs and alcohol. But it does seem as though no matter how many times we hear of people having, actual medical conditions and health scares, that always goes over people's heads. People's first instinct is always to kind of take jabs and say, oh, he's probably just a junkie, he's probably just OD'd, or he probably just, was drinking too much the night before, etc., etc. There was no sense of like sensitivity or compassion, like, hey, actually, maybe he's got something else going on with him. And it just got me thinking, we had Chadwick Boseman, who passed a couple of years ago. And, people, when he first kind of came out, visibly appearing very, very skinny, looking quite, disheveled. Again, people's first assumption was drugs, Hollywood has got to him, etc., etc. And he kind of became a running joke, and people were starting to use his images as memes on Twitter. Come to find out, a couple of months later, that he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And of course, as we know, he passed. And there's been a few celebrities, who have come up with similar conditions and, thankfully haven't necessarily passed, but, in the initial instance of, them appearing to be visibly thinner and looking quite poorly, people's assumptions again were just, it has to be drug abuse, it has to be alcohol abuse. So it just seems that even though we continuously hear of stories where people are genuinely sick and have medical conditions, people still don't run to being compassionate. They run to, taking jabs and, assuming that drugs and alcohol are the reason why, these people are appearing the way they are. So it just got me thinking, a lot of people, younger people as well, are getting sick a lot and getting quite serious sicknesses, getting quite serious medical conditions. And it just got me thinking, what are some of the contributing factors to why that could be? Because I think it is quite alarming the rate at which, young people these days are kind of in and out of hospital, are being prescribed different medication. Now, drugs and alcohol is definitely a part of that. I mean, we see it in everything. It's all over our media. It's in the music. It's in the movies. It's in the series. It's constantly being put in our faces, the constant use of drugs and alcohol. And to be honest, it is glamorized as well in a lot of these series and a lot of these programs. And it's very much become part of the culture, popular culture, to use and abuse drugs and alcohol. And we know that people have obviously different reasons for why they turn to drugs and alcohol. For some people, it's, it's a form of escapism. For some people, it's, a confidence booster. It's about, being in social settings and seeming, like fun and the life of the party and somebody cool to be around. For some people, again, it's just peer pressure. There are many different reasons for why people, find themselves using drugs and alcohol. But the concern is how the age of the group of people who are using drugs and alcohol gets lower and lower every single year. And so, of course, that's going to have health implications, especially on bodies that are developing and bodies that are, that are still growing. So there is definitely that. But I also got to thinking about, the lack of, exercise. I don't know these days a lot of people who are into exercise. When I speak to a lot of people, gym is sort of just like a touch and go thing. I'm in my 20s. So to me, I'm like, gym should really be something, or just having some form of a workout, whether it's through a sport or some kind of activity, is really important. Like, we are young. This is the best time for us to kind of really get in shape. And don't get it twisted. I'm not sitting here as somebody who is, been faithful to having a, routine of exercise. I definitely fell off, between 2020 and 2021. 2022 even, I definitely fell off of gym and just like having that regular pattern of doing, exercise. And it was really hard to get back into. The pandemic definitely contributed to that kind of just rapid changing of, my workout routine. But now that I'm back into it, I can absolutely see the difference it makes in everything that I do. I'm way more energetic. I just feel better mentally and physically. And I'm just capable of doing a lot more in my day that before I wouldn't be able to do. Sometimes I'll be feeling really lethargic. And, I would try to take all these different vitamins and supplements and, switching around my diet, and it wouldn't work. But now that I'm in gym, I don't even have those issues anymore. So, just getting that metabolism, working, getting your heart rate pumping, just getting that blood flowing around your body is really important. It makes a big difference to how you feel. Diet is definitely one of the major things. I think that's also affecting young people specifically because, we have Uber Eats, we have Deliveroo, the lifestyle we live as well. Again, when you're consuming lots of, alcohol and drugs, you're having late nights, you're partying a lot, and you have different hustles. Young people these days don't just go to school. They have loads of different businesses and side hustles that they run, courses that they're taking. They're doing so many things concurrently. And so sometimes that means, the time to eat just isn't there. And I can definitely attest to that. When I began doing music, when I began doing this show, it was a complete adjustment to my routine. I was just so used to, I go to work, I come home, I can socialize with my family, I can catch up on shows, I can decide to go to the gym, but my evenings were pretty much all to me. And I had the decision, I had a few hours to decide what it is that I wanted to do with that. Once I started doing these other things, that time went, because now it was like, I don't even get to come home from work. I'm going straight to do a show. And by the time I finish that show and I come home, it's usually around midnight or 1 o'clock. Maybe I was drinking at the show. Maybe, they were handing out snacks and things like that at the show. So I'm not eating proper food, but I'm eating like little bits. Maybe it's crisps, maybe it's chips, maybe it's a burger. And in London, things close early if you want decent food. So it's either you manage to somehow squeeze between, end of work and your show starting to have something to eat, or you're not going to eat until you've left that venue, and then you're only left with your KFC, your McDonald's and things like that. So I can definitely relate to how hard it is to kind of get into a routine of sleeping well, eating good, making sure you have regular exercise, because it's just sort of like, where is the time? Because the majority of us need to have a 9 to 5. We need to have a job. And now with the cost of living, some of us have multiple 9 to 5s in order to sustain, just having a roof over our heads, being able to pay our bills, and then having the flexibility to then go and pursue our side hustles and other things that we want to do. So it's quite tricky. So for me, what I had to do was I had to subscribe to a meal plan. I just had to. And I'm not really a fan of the meal plans because, I'm used to, particular kind of seasonings. I'm used to eating certain things that I like to eat. But with a meal plan, what it does mean is that I'm waiting for is a delivery one morning in the week. And then I've got food for the rest of the week. I've got lunch and dinner. Cereal, I can easily make around 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, which is around the time that I would have my breakfast. And then, I've got a meal plan that I can just pop in my bag and take to work with me and microwave. And then I know that I've got something when I get back, whatever time that is. And it's going to be healthier. It's not going to be just, deep fried food with lots of oils and fats and sugars and salt and all the rest of it, additives and all of those kind of things. So that isn't necessarily an affordable alternative for a lot of people, but I think that is something to consider. Let's really consider looking after our health. I think if we really want to live long life, I get it. We're young, we only live once. You only get to be young once, and you want to live your best life. And I completely get that. But I think that if you want to live your best life truly, your health is a big part of that. So making sure that you have a good diet, making sure that you have a good sleeping pattern, making sure that you're doing some form of exercise in the week, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's being a part of a fitness class, whether it's doing an activity like basketball or tennis or football, having some form of exercise that you can do weekly is really, really important. And also, I'm not an advocate for drugs. I don't, condemn or condone, but I'm not going to be an advocate for drugs ever. So I would highly recommend, if you are somebody who uses drugs regularly, if you feel like you are addicted, then I would 100%, encourage looking at ways to decrease your drug intake. If it's alcohol, same thing. Look at ways to decrease your intake. And, especially if you're using it as a form of escapism and things like that, when is it that you're most likely to take those substances? Is it when you're out with your friends? Is it when you're at events? Is it when you're at parties? Is it when you're by yourself? Let's look at some of those patterns and routines that we've gotten comfortable with and look at ways that we can change how we occupy those times. So maybe, if we know that getting around our friends is going to encourage us to do that, maybe we, for a short while, decrease how much we get around our friends. And I know, especially if we're talking about people like under 23, that can seem like not being my friends. What do you mean? For people over 23 who are out of uni, that might not be so much of an issue because you're now going to be experiencing the real world anyway. So you ain't going to have as much time to be partying as much as you did when you were in uni and beforehand. But I know for those under 23, that might seem quite a difficult thing to do, but it's going to be worth it. Your investment in your health is the best thing you could ever do, especially if you want to live a long life. If you want to be on yachts and you want to, have that dream house and you want to do certain things, you need to take care of your health. And you'll be surprised how by improving your diet, having your exercise, having some form of weekly exercise, how reducing and or completely stopping the use of alcohol and drugs will absolutely improve the way you feel about your body, the way your body feels, and also how you feel mentally. I didn't realize how much my diet was affecting me mentally until I had to cut down on certain things. And I was like, oh my gosh, because the things that they're pumping into this food, it's obviously not organic. It's obviously not fresh. A lot of these things are made quickly to produce quickly so that we can be so they can be, you know, produced quickly so that we can buy them. And that's why they're at the prices that they are, you know, at £3, £4, £5 a meal. Okay, because when you want proper food, you're going to have to go up in price, and that isn't always, you know, feasible, especially, like I said, in London, where things close for me considerably early, considering the fact that I have very, very long days. So yeah, investing in your health is going to serve you in the long run. And so I would 10 out of 10 recommend, you know, trying to look at ways to adjust that pattern. And again, that just all of this just came from me hearing about Wes Nelson losing consciousness in his home. How terrifying that must be. And thank God that he was able to alert his neighbors, and they were able to get him help soon. And he was able to get some tests done, and they were able to give him the all clear. But imagine he didn't. You know what I mean? And I think it's also wrong to always assume that young people are just abusing and using drugs. Sometimes it is, you know, down to diet. Sometimes there are, you know, hereditary conditions and or other medical conditions that could be causing somebody to have, you know, a health scare. So let's just be a bit more sensitive when we're talking to people about their health and about, you know, health conditions or health scares that they may have. And let's also, us as individuals, as young people growing up, wanting to, you know, experience the world and enjoy our lives, let's also take accountability and be responsible for what we put in our bodies. Easier said than done. Trust me, it's taken me literally 3 years to get to this place. But it's worth it, because I feel so much better than I ever have over the last 3 years. And I can see myself getting back to, you know, the version of me that I loved, who was, you know, somebody who was active in the gym, somebody who loved to look after her body, loved to look after her appearance, and somebody who just ate well and overall just looked after herself mentally, emotionally, and physically. So yeah, so I'm going to park that story there. I hope, if anything, you've taken something away from that. I'm going to move right on along to, of course, the situation pertaining Chirs Brown. Now, if you are a Chirs Brown fan, and I know some people will be looking at me like, girl, aren't you a Chirs Brown fan? We'll talk about that in another day. But if you are a Chirs Brown fan, it is not easy being a Chirs Brown fan. You know, it's really not. There are people that are always ready to get onto him, that are always ready to criticize him, you know, kind of rain down on him. Anything he does wrong, everybody's ready to say, aha, see, told you. People are always ready to tell you, you know, see, Chirs Brown is this, Chirs Brown is that. But, you know, when he has moments of good and, you know, things are quiet and he's doing great things, it's pretty much crickets. It just is what it is. Obviously, as we know, over the past week, he was seen at his birthday party that Usher threw for him. He was seen in a video shouting at Teyana Taylor, calling her all types of B words and F words. And allegedly after that video, Chirs Brown actually, after that incident, Chirs Brown actually left, and he went to his bus because he was ready to leave the party. Usher and then allegedly followed him to his bus, I guess tried to calm him down and convince him to come back inside. And then allegedly Usher was then seen leaving the bus with a bloody nose. However, the following day, after that video was leaked, Chirs Brown still performed at the Lovers and Friends Festival, which is the festival that Usher's holding in Las Vegas. And Usher also posted a video of himself at the festival, you know, all smiling, saying, we're having so much fun here at the Lovers and Friends Festival. So people are like, that's strange. How comes, you know, Usher doesn't seem to be physically bruised in any way, shape, or form? He's smiling, he's happy, literally hours, like less than 24 hours after this video has gone viral. And also Chirs Brown is performing. What's going on? So obviously people started to look at the publication that first released the video, and it was Hollywood Unlocked, which Hollywood Unlocked has got, you know, a very varying reputation because people are not really a fan of Jason Lee. Jason Lee is the founder of Hollywood Unlocked, and he's quite a controversial character, and a lot of people don't necessarily like him. So I think the fact that it came from Jason Lee first, people are like, maybe that story isn't true, maybe it was exaggerated, maybe it's out of context. But of course, like I said, the people that don't like Chirs Brown, they were like, no, Chirs Brown did that, trust me. But TMZ also then went to go and publish the same video. So now everybody was like, oh, well, if TMZ posted it, it has to be true. And it seems like people have forgotten, you know, the era of TMZ where they would just release fake stories for clicks and views, right? But that's neither here nor there, because people saw it was on TMZ and they were like, TMZ posted it, it has to be true. So people just started raining in on Chirs Brown, and he obviously he went viral across social media. Then the following night, there was another video of Chirs Brown that surfaced, and it was him arguing with a security guard. And it looked like, you know, it did kind of look like he was charging at the security guard and he was kind of like ready to, you know, square up. And Chris Brown actually did post, a statement about this. He posted it on his Instagram story, and he said, you guys have been waiting all weekend. All weekend you guys have been having fun, poking at me and, just raining on me. But actually, the reason why I was going on with the security guard is because he was trying to usher people out of the venue, and the direction in which he was ushering them to is where my son was, and I didn't want people to go towards there. So on the one hand, you can understand the concern, but on the other hand, it's the way he looked in the video communicating that message that he says he was communicating to security guard that was kind of alarming. So people were just like, you know what, that's 2 for 2. Chris Brown is done. This guy is crazy. He's a maniac, etc. Like the insults were just flying left, right, and center, right? And people were listing out every single, kind of violent incident and altercation he's had since the 2009 incident with Rihanna. So there's a couple things there. The issue at his birthday party, I didn't realize him and Teyana Taylor weren't on good terms. So that was a shocker to me. I was kind of like, why is Chris Brown and Teyana Taylor having any kind of issue? I've always known them to be really, really cool, like really close, right? So what's going on? It's still not clear what is going on and what's kind of caused the descent in their friendship, but it seems quite evident to those in the industry that those two are not friends. So for whatever reason, Teyana Taylor was at the birthday party. Now, for me personally, I don't care if all my friends are going to this birthday party. If me and this person genuinely do not get on and there is animosity between us, I'm not going there because I don't want there to be any issue, right? I can miss that party. It's not that deep. Okay. Maybe Usher invited her because he thought this would be an opportunity for them to squash it. But clearly Teyana Taylor was not interested because in that video, she walked straight past him. She didn't acknowledge him. And apparently that is kind of what actually triggered his effing and blinding, was the fact that she didn't even, say hello to him at the very least. She just completely refused to acknowledge him. But it's like, you're at his birthday party. It's a little weird. I'm not going to lie. But friends argue. Friends do go through weird phases and patches. And I'm not going to lie. I have been in a similar situation where I have seen friends, who were once friends, not be friends, and I've then kind of go at it. Just lucky for them, nobody was there filming it, ready to post it on social media. So on the one hand, I kind of understand it. But I think because, again, Chris Brown's reputation of being kind of aggressive and or violent towards women, it doesn't leave a good taste in people's mouth, him effing and blinding at Teyana Taylor. So, and then it doesn't help also that he was under the influence. And as we know, when you're under the influence, and we don't know if it was just alcohol that was in his system, it could have been MJ and possibly other drugs as well. But anybody who's under the influence, usually, your emotions are heightened, your reactions are exaggerated. Everything is just that much extra, right? So it doesn't help his situation. And then you've got the incident that came the next day with the security guard. So in my mind, I'm like, regardless of what the situation was, everybody's allowed to have human reactions. Everybody's allowed to have arguments. People can argue with their friends. Like, these things happen. It's natural. It's normal, right? I don't think it's fair to just solely say, somebody is XYZ because XYZ. But unfortunately for Chris Brown, because his reputation of, kind of negative events with women precedes him, then it's sort of like, people are inevitably always going to believe the worst before they can see any good in the situation. And I just think, personally, in my opinion, for Chris Brown, he needs to reach a stage where he's like, you know what? I need help. I need to get my drinking under control. I need to probably reduce the use of MJ and other substances if he is using those. And he just needs to take a break, and he needs to really go and do some introspection. My problem, what I'm starting to see with Chris Brown, is there's a lot of arrogance and pride. Okay, and I think where arrogance and pride are in the picture, it kind of blinds you from being able to see where you might actually need to do some work. Where there's arrogance and pride, I really think that humility and introspection needs to take place, right? And I think if he wants to have any kind of legacy, if he really wants to continue to have a long career, he really does need to just say, you know what, even if all the people are wrong about me, something is clearly not coming across right. And it's worth him looking into that and really doing the work to make sure that he can, if it's even possible, redeem himself and redeem his image, right? And if he's not motivated to do it for himself, hopefully for his children, because I think there's something really powerful about your children seeing you kind of come from this really dark place and going into a more positive direction, not just by your words, but literally by your actions, right? So I don't know. That's just my opinion. I really hope that, he's really, he's getting up there in his 30s now. And I think it's really important for him to think about how he's portraying himself and how he's coming across. Even if, we are all wrong in what we have seen and what we have said about him, I do think that one too many times is too many times. You know what I mean? And I think maybe it's time to start looking at what he can do to really get to a place where, you know, if he is abusing and or overusing, you know, alcohol and drugs, maybe he needs to really consider just reducing that and or stopping altogether, and probably just sitting down with somebody, getting and really talking about what's going on in his mind and in his heart, and maybe even expressing some of the frustrations that he's experiencing with people constantly being ready to just condemn him and remind him of the 2009 incident and everything else that he's ever done wrong. So that might be good for him. And that's just my suggestion, because I think it is getting to a stage now where I feel like if he's not careful, he might be completely blackballed from the industry. And I kind of am getting to start to see the beginning of that, because even what happened at the AMAs, you know, they'd called him there to do the Michael Jackson tribute, which I think was a double-edged sword. I think they didn't want to honor Michael Jackson anyways, to be honest, but there was nobody else that was going to be able to honor Michael Jackson, if we're being honest, other than Chirs Brown. He was the only one that was going to give us the full show. And as we saw the clip that he posted on his Instagram, that even got more views than the actual AMAs itself, you know, we can tell that everybody, even people that may have not been a big Chirs Brown fan, would have definitely tuned into the show to see that performance, because it would have definitely been a spectacle, right? So I think even that, him being, you know, kind of cancelled from the show is a further evidence that if he's not careful, that's not going to be the only show that he's cancelled from. And I already fear that a lot of publications, a lot of, you know, award ceremonies, they are not willing to give Chirs Brown another chance. And I think, again, like I said, the arrogance and the pride that he keeps displaying every time something happens isn't helping his case. And then obviously what's happened over this past weekend, even though nothing has been confirmed and denied, other than the incident that he had with a security guard, again, it's not helping his case. So I think it's really worth for him, if he wants to really sustain his legacy and have any sort of name for himself after he's long gone, something that his children's children can eat off, he really needs to consider probably doing some more inner work and just looking at maybe reducing his use and take of alcohol and drugs. But that's all I've got to say on that, because, yeah, I mean, I can't defend the actions of somebody that, you know, is clearly repeatedly offending. Even if, like I said, our perception of what we've seen is wrong, it's hard to defend. Do you know what I mean? It's just hard to defend. It's just, I don't know. There are a lot of people defending him, which is fair enough. But again, I think it would just benefit him to go and do that work. And hopefully that will help begin to redeem his image, redeem his brand, and redeem himself, you know, in the eyes of people who have already decided that he's not worth redemption. So cool. I'm going to park that there, and we're going to move right on along to a topic that I saw on the timeline. Now, I was interested in this because I think it's the first time I've actually seen a man bring up this conversation. I usually see women talk about this because women usually then use this as an opportunity to express their gripes with friendships with men. But it was actually a guy this time on Twitter who brought up the discussion on whether men and women can be friends. So I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see the thread. So just give me one moment. I'm just going to open this up here. And then I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see this. I'm actually starting to get a bit better at this now. It's starting to make a bit more sense. Because in the last stream I did, oh my goodness, you saw the behind the scenes instead of the actual screen you needed to see. So that was nightmarish. Okay, I'm sure now you should be able to see that. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see the original tweet. And I'm going to read everything out anyways. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing that this guy says is, this could be a hot take, but if you don't think men and women can be friends, then I think your romantic relationships are either built on transaction or to meet some expectation. He then goes on to say, because how do you see a value in a person and think they're not capable of being friends with? Then he kind of plays out a scenario, right? This person is empathetic, helpful, reliable, caring, compassionate, etc. Okay, be their friend. Lol, no, that's impossible. We can only be married now. And I'm going to give my opinion after, but I want to go through the thread. So this lady says, it's possible, but I'd be lying if I didn't concede that all of my male friends, except one, have made some sort of pass at me, whether it be exploring a relationship or a quick hookup. To which he responded, I'm never saying this doesn't happen, but we have to acknowledge this is how we, men, are socialized to view women. Another woman says, very valid. But to be fair, relationships have to be transactional in some aspect, but not the sole purpose. And then he responds, transactional or reciprocal or equal. Then another lady says, men don't see value in women as people, only sex. That is literally the reason why they can't be friends. Sex is quite literally the only thing they pursue women for in the first place. So if he's not getting that, he wants nothing to do with her. Now, I like the fact that he acknowledged that men are socialized to view women as sexual objects, as, kind of creatures to be desired, lusted after, and pursued for mating and relationships. So I like that he acknowledged that. And I can definitely, relate to that woman's experience in terms of majority of her friends who are men, trying to pursue her, whether it's just to have casual hookups or, be friends with benefits, or actually to pursue a relationship. So I can definitely relate to that. In my experience, I've definitely had that. And for me, at that point, if I don't desire that person in that way, I just lock it off. I just cut it off because that's the easiest thing to do, right? If we can't reach a place of respecting and understanding that I only want to be your friend and you can't live with that, then that's okay. But we can't be friends beyond this point, because now I'm going to feel some type of way because I know how you feel about me and I know that you cannot contain that within our friendship. So it's just better that everybody goes their separate way and we do it that way. The woman who said that, to some extent that relationships and friendships have to be transactional, I liked his response. I think his question was right. She didn't answer the question, which is why I didn't include it in the thread. But I thought, yeah, I think she probably means, well, I'm hoping she means reciprocal or equal rather than transactional, because I don't think transactional is the right word when we're talking about friendships and relationships. That's just my personal opinion as well. And then, of course, the lady who said that, men are just, sexualized women and that's just how they view them. Again, that kind of agrees with what the guy answered earlier on. My opinion on this is, what is the definition of a friend to you? Because I think it does look different to different people. And I think what kind of a friend somebody is to you and you are to somebody is also depending on how you guys met, what stage of your life you're in, and just kind of like, the dynamic that you've built through the time of your friendship, right? So what is friendship to you? For me, it's somebody who respects me, who doesn't judge me, who will hold me accountable, who loves me and cares for me, wants to see, the best for me, and it can be happy for me. But somebody who also can be there for me in terms of hardships and, sadness. Somebody who can be a listening ear, somebody who can be a comforter, somebody who I can turn up with and have a great time with, right? And I believe that I want to be, and I am that friend to my friends, right? And if I'm not, then do let me know, because I'm all about, growth and improvement. So that's what a friend is to me, right? What I've noticed, and I definitely have been guilty of this as well, is that women sometimes, we do kind of play on the fact that we are women. And if a guy who is a friend of ours is attractive, we can get our flirt on every now and then. And the danger of flirting and flirtatious banter is that for men, already, for some men, when you tell them, hi, how are you? They already think you're in love with them. Because you've shown them any kind of kindness, a smile on the face, they are convinced you love them, and now they must pursue you to the ends of the earth. And it's like, sir, I'm literally just being a decent human being, okay? I'm just being a respectful human being, okay? I'm just being who I am, kind and generous, okay? And sociable, right? But now this guy has decided, because you've done those things, that you must want him and he must now pursue you. Okay, so there are some guys who are like that. So that's really tough. And I think if you don't have those boundaries in place in terms of what a friendship is to you, and you're not upfront about that, it's very easy for those lines to be blurred and for one person to end up feeling a bit sour at the end of it. Okay, so all parties feeling pretty sour at the end of it. So what is a friend to you? Women sometimes, like I said, I'm guilty of this as well. We have a tendency sometimes to be a bit flirtatious. We, love to play around with our femininity a little bit. And it's nice. You have a little bit of attention from your friend and you kind of just have that flirtatious banter. You go back and forth. But again, you're feeding into a fantasy. And if you know you don't like somebody and you know you don't desire to be with them or have anything more than just a friendship with them, then don't do it. That is my honest advice, is don't do it. Don't cross those lines. Have those boundaries and friends. If you wouldn't do it with a friend of the same sex, don't do it to a friend of the opposite sex, especially when we're talking about men, okay? Because they will feed into that as well. They'll be like, oh, okay, she's definitely giving me subtle hints here and there. She's being a bit more touchy-feely. She's complimenting my appearance a lot. You know, she's making kind of suggestive comments here and there. Maybe I can try my luck. Maybe we can be a friends with benefits. Maybe we can just do the one time. Or maybe I can actually be with her. You know, so don't send those conflicting messages. Men as well, because men do it too sometimes as well. Men definitely love to kind of initiate things that they can't finish. And I don't know why. Like, don't start something you can't finish. If you know you have no intentions with this person, don't then initiate something. It just doesn't make sense. So if somebody's supposed to be your friend, have those very clear boundaries. And the way you have those boundaries by actually knowing what a friend means to you. What does it mean to have a friend in your life? What does a friend look like to you? And then making sure that you create that dynamic by open communication with that person. And also sometimes, I don't want to say use the word testing because it doesn't sound right, but sometimes give your friend situations. For example, if you're you know, you've got something coming up and you're looking for support, give your friend the opportunity to support you. Say, hey, friend, I've got this thing coming up. I would love for you to be there, and see what they say and do and how they respond to that. These are ways to kind of know, is my friend really my friend? Is this just an acquaintance, somebody I just socialize with when I go out to events and things? Or is there somebody that can actually be my friend? Because you'll be surprised sometimes how many people are prepared to be there for you and actually step up to the mark of being a friend, but are never invited into your life to do so. But again, you need to know what a friend means and looks like to you. Set those boundaries and give your friends the opportunity to be your friends. And if they don't, you know, if they repeatedly fail to show up for you, whether good or bad, if they're continuously showing signs maybe of jealousy and not being able to be happy for you, never giving, you know, any kind of good advice or solid advice, or, you know, just generally not fulfilling you as a friend, then it's probably time to demote them in your life. And you know, that's fine. I think sometimes you have to know where people sit in your life. Not everybody is going to be your friend, your bestie is going to be there for you, is going to love you in the way that you may, you know, set out to love and be friends with them. And that's just what it is. It's just part of life. So yeah, I think men and women can be friends, but I think we need to all be very honest with ourselves. What is a friend to us? What does it mean to have a friend in our lives? What kind of a friend are we to other people? What boundaries do we have in place for friendships? You know, and how do we implement those and make sure that we are having, you know, healthy dynamics in our friendships, and then we're not crossing those boundaries. And if somebody's repeatedly crossing those boundaries, then again, it's time to probably demote them and or completely get them out of your life. So that's my take on that. I think men and women can be friends, but I think we really need to do a little bit of retrospection there in terms of what kind of dynamics do we have with our friends currently, especially of the opposite sex. What is the dynamic? You know, is it all purely kind of like suggestive stuff, flirtatious banter? Is it all just like come chill at mine and all that kind of stuff? Or do you guys actually have a friendship? Like, can you call this guy and talk about deep things that are going on in your family, going in your mind? Will they actually show up for you if you need to? Like if you're feeling down and you just need to have a cup of coffee and vent, will they turn up for you? Little things like that, you know, and will you do the same for them? Do you do the same for them? You know, figure out who your friends are. The sooner, the better, I say, because as you get older, you come to find out that you can't take all your friends with you. You really can't. And don't get me wrong, there are people out there who have, you know, quite healthy friendship numbers and sizes in terms of like maybe more than 5 people. But I think the majority of people I know and I've spoken to don't have that many friends. Like they literally have a handful of people they can actually call friends. Other people, it's just like acquaintances. I'll see you when I see you. We're cool. We get on, whatever. But people that they can actually rely on and trust and who they can depend on, and vice versa. It's usually just a handful of people that come through in the clutch. So don't feel discouraged if you come to find out during your evaluation of your friendships that you don't have actually that many friends, because I think that is pretty normal. Yeah. So that's that on that. I definitely want to move right on along because this is a shorter show. Usually when I do a show like this, I usually have a guest on, but today I don't have a guest. So it is just me. And so there's no need for the show to kind of go on for hours. So I just want to keep it kind of cute, but I really want to touch on this topic. And this is the topic I want to conclude on. It's the interview with Eboni K Williams and Iyanla, I think her name is. This got Black Twitter and just like the whole of social media in such an uproar. And I was so confused because to me, I was reading through like the headlines and the kind of like the statements. I didn't see anything wrong with what Eboni K Williams said, but I thought, you know what? It's important I do my due diligence, go and watch it for myself and make my own judgment and conclusion. So before I even kind of tell you guys exactly what I think, I want you guys to watch it, just in case you haven't actually seen it. I want you guys to watch the original interview that Eboni K Williams did with Iyanla Van Sant about her dating preferences. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me one moment. I'm going to put this up for you guys. I'm probably going to mute my computer just so that you're not getting echo and feedback. Okay, cool. And definitely let me know you guys' thoughts on this as well. I'm really curious to know what you guys think about what she said. You know, is she wrong? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there anything that you think that she could have touched upon that she didn't? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
We also are the
sorry about that. I was meant to mute that.
fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, along with Latina women in America. Pew Research said that women are now out-earning men in 22 of the largest cities in America, including where I live, New York, DC, LA, you name it. When we talk, and I know that you've said that you cannot teach a man or tell a man how to be a man. So I will not ask you to indict men in this question. But I do want you to speak, Iyanla, to how women need to, position ourselves so that we can be in our divinity, so we can have our crowns right, how we can create and not build, when some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if
a bus
he owns
driver?
the bus? If he owns it. If he owns the bus.
See, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem.
Okay.
Because the standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who we are as women and who they are in this society. I would date a bus driver if he loved driving the bus, if he was a man of integrity, if he was good to his mama, if he treated me well, I would date a bus driver. But we think that it's another human being's responsibility to give us what we need instead of us building together. I could build with a bus driver. I'd have my little stash over on the side in my prenup, but I could build with a bus driver. So I think some of the criteria that we look for in the reality of today keeps us unhappy, keeps us angry, keeps us imbalance. And then when the men show up, we want to beat them up because they're not living up to our standards and criteria. And it's not working, beloved.
Okay, I'm going to stop that there because I think you guys now get the premise of the conversation, and her facial expressions were sending me, okay? Because the way she was looking, like she looked like somebody who had a mouthful to say but was being very respectful of her elders, because I'm so sorry. Iyanla, I don't know what she was talking about. First of all, let's just get into Eboni K Williams. Let's just talk about her. Let's just go through this so I can kind of break it all down in my understanding of the interview, the conversation at large, and kind of the themes surrounding it, right? So Eboni K Williams, she is an author, a lawyer. She is a television host. She was also a former cast member of Real Housewives of New York. I think she was the first Black woman actually to appear on Real Housewives of New York. She's 40 years old and she is a multimillionaire. Okay, so she's well established. And I also believe, this is my personal opinion, I believe preferences are relative. I think it's relative to your upbringing, your social conditioning, your social class, your economic class, and I think that it can change depending on what stage of your life you're at. Okay, so that's just my genuine belief. So at this point in her life, Eboni is a 40-year-old multimillionaire. Okay, I don't think anything she said in her response was wrong. I don't think her saying if he owned the bus was wrong, because she is a business owner. She is somebody who has a certain life that she leads. And everything, if you actually look into who Eboni K Williams is and what she heavily advocates, is actually for the growth of the Black economy. Okay, the Black family, the Black community. She's very, very big on this. She's very big on ownership as well. And she talks about this across her various different platforms. So somebody who is of this mindset, who has literally earned her way out of poverty, her desiring to be with somebody that's on her level makes absolute sense to me. I don't even understand why it was something that touched so many people, including Iyanla. I'm like, you are also a woman who has accomplished quite a lot. But I thought it was interesting that Iyanla never actually answered her question. Eboni presented a series of stats there talking about how women are out earning men and how women are also more educated than men, okay? And how that kind of affects the dynamic of the Black family and the growing household, okay? And her presenting that information, she then presented Iyanla with a question. Iyanla, for whatever reason, I don't know if she couldn't answer the question or she didn't want to answer the question, then flipped that to say, would you date a bus driver? Eboni's answer was, if he owns the bus. Iyanla then went on to say that she would, and this is the problem with women, is that where women are in society today and where men are isn't the same, etc., etc. And two things came to my mind immediately when she said that. One, is she talking based on her previous choices of men? Because I think she's on her third divorce. And or two, is she speaking on where she is now? She is 69, having her second or third divorce, I'm not sure. And if we're being honest, if we're just talking superficially, she doesn't rank that high in terms of desirability. And I don't think she's an ugly woman at all, but we do know there is a standard of beauty when it comes to dating up, okay? Usually non-Blacks have the first upper hand, and then if you're Black, you have to be extremely beautiful, which Eboni K Williams is, and according to many people, Iyanla wouldn't be considered extremely beautiful. So how many men of that caliber that Eboni K Williams is desiring to partner with would look at Iyanla? Let's just be real. Okay, let's just be real. That's no shade, no tea. Okay, how many of those men are going to look at Iyanla and want to settle down with Iyanla? Okay, on top of that, Eboni checks a lot of boxes. Okay, Eboni is beautiful. She has naturally long hair. She is physically fit. She looks after her body. Okay, she dresses well. She's well educated and well established. Multiple sources of income there. Okay. So the people getting offended, specifically men, those mainly men getting offended, would desire her. That would be somebody that they would want. Okay, so her saying that if you don't meet this standard, I'm not even prepared to go on a date with you, upset a lot of them. Now, for some reason, a lot of people managed to translate that into she's looking down on bus drivers or looking down on the working class, specifically Black men. Which in nowhere did she say, because I even went on to watch her interview with the Breakfast Club and DJ Envy, the conversation she was having kind of with DJ Envy. Nowhere did she mention anything about her looking down on the working class, her looking down on bus drivers. But one thing I did realize in all these conversations, and if I missed it, please do let me know. If I missed it, I might have just not heard it because I listened to so many of the interviews and they were quite long. But the only thing I missed from the interview was the fact that where you start isn't where you finished, and your occupation doesn't define you. That is what I was looking for in all the interviews and kind of hot takes I've heard about the situation. I didn't really hear anybody say where you start isn't where you finish, and that your occupation doesn't actually define you. Because what I did see a lot of people saying was, who were in support of Eboni, was that, well, where would she meet a bus driver? She's definitely not using a bus. Her and a bus driver are not going to be in the same venues. And I'm like, actually, if we go back to what I said kind of right at the beginning of this show, a lot of people have multiple sources of income these days. Cost of living is no joke. Cost of living is no joke. So a lot of people aren't just doing one job. And a lot of people, even though they are doing specific jobs, does not mean that they're not educated. They just haven't got their, I guess, breakthrough yet, right? So what I will only give Iyanla credit for is that she didn't say marry or be with. She just said date. And I think it is quite important to date because you get to know people. And that's where you get to find out, oh, this person is a bus driver and only has aspirations to drive the bus, which is absolutely fine if that's the case. And then you can make a decision from there, an informed decision from there. Or you can find out this person actually doesn't just drive the bus. They own the bus. They have other business ventures. They own property. They have investments, etc., etc. But you won't know that without being able to actually have an opportunity to talk to somebody and get to know them. So I think that's the only part of the conversation I didn't hear come up. I heard a lot of people being angry at Eboni K Williams for saying she wouldn't date a bus driver and claiming that she is too bougie and looking down on Black people and the working class. And then there was people that are advocating for her and saying, but where would she meet a bus driver? You could meet a bus driver anywhere. You could, because you don't actually know what somebody else is doing in addition to driving that bus route. People are multi-layered. People are multifaceted. And in this day of hustle culture, people are doing multiple things. So it is very well possible that this person might be deciding, you know, I've had a long career of doing all of these things, and I just kind of want to retire doing a bus route. Why not? I want to do the next 10 years just driving a bus route, retire gracefully, and leave it at that. Or it could be, this is where I'm starting, but I've already opened up this business here. I've already bought real estate here. So once these things start, you know, producing some residual income, I'm retiring from this bus route. You won't know until you date, okay? But for her stating her preference, I don't think there's anything wrong with her because she is a woman who has worked extremely hard to get to where she is. And she does come from humble beginnings. And she advocates for the progression of the Black community. She's very vocal about it. She's writing books about it. And she uses her platforms to educate people on it. And she herself continues to educate herself on it to ensure that she's well informed when she speaks on it. So this isn't somebody that just woke up and said, you know, well, now I'm rich. I'm too good for you. And let me go on. No, this is somebody that genuinely wants to see Black people grow. So to me, if you are genuinely offended by that, I am looking at you sideways. Because it's one of two things. You're either very happy in where you are in life right now, and so what she said shouldn't even bother you, and or two, you're not. You're insecure about it. And or you don't even want to step up to the standard. And that makes me sad. Why don't men want to step up? And I'm not saying it's all men, because I personally know a lot of men who are doing great things. And they are dedicated to improving themselves, growing, learning, unlearning, and being the best versions of themselves they can be. But there are also a lot of men who don't want to. They want to do the bare minimum and be with a woman like Eboni K Williams. To do what with her? To drag her down to your level? Because that's all you'll end up doing. Even if that's not your intention, that is what you'll end up doing, right? Because for her to be where she is, it means that she hasn't settled in life. She hasn't accepted where she came from as where she needs to finish. So why would she want that in a partner? She wants somebody who's got the same mindset as her so they can build a family that can create a legacy of generational wealth and knowledge that will then be passed on for generations and change her family history forever. That's what she desires, and she deserves to be with somebody who desires the same thing. I can't see how that can be wrong. Because in nowhere, like I said, did she say that she looks down on the working class or she thinks that a bus driver is beneath her. What she's saying is, I want people to want more for their lives. And if you don't want to want more and you're happy with where you are, then this shouldn't even bother you. This conversation shouldn't even be something you're involved in. But if it's bothering you, then it's speaking to something in you. And don't get me wrong, it's not easy, especially when you're Black. It's not easy to climb the corporate ladder. It isn't easy to have ownership. But in spite of it not being easy, how badly do you want it? Are you prepared to do the work that Eboni has done over the last 30 years of her life and career to get to where she is? Are you prepared to do the same thing? If you're not, then why do you want to be with a woman like her? The other thing was that I think a lot of men were upset about is because she obviously has a platform. She has influence, right? So she's going to influence a younger generation of women who are as beautiful as her, as ambitious as her, to say, you know what, I'm not accepting a guy who isn't prepared to work hard. and to want more for his life. See, where a lot of guys may have been getting away with giving the bare minimum and bagging one of the best looking women in the neighborhood, a woman like that comes on a platform and says, absolutely not. I need you to be on my level before we can date. Oh, that's going to annoy a lot of people. Of course it is. Because if we're being honest here, and if men are being honest, men love to see what they can get away with. That is just the nature of men. They will do the bare minimum to see what they can get away with. Okay? And what Eboni is saying is the bare minimum isn't going to work around here. People are saying, oh, but what about love? What about companionship? Hello, those should be the basics in a relationship. Those even shouldn't be something that you have to seek after. Those should just be, if you want to be with somebody and you want to have a relationship with somebody, you wanting to love them and look after them and care for them, these should be the standard practices in a relationship. Otherwise, what are you doing together? Or what are you doing pursuing this person? It doesn't make sense to me. To me, that should be the standard. Okay? What she's saying is the additional things that you need to come with. I expect you, if you want to be with me, to love me and to hold me down and to care for me, because that's exactly what you're going to get from me as your woman, as your wife. Yeah. But on top of that, now I also need you to be somebody that has this way of thinking, that wants to build this with our children and future generations. I need you to also want to invest in these things and have this desire for ownership. That's her prerogative. She's worked hard to get there. So she can say that with her chest. She doesn't have the baggage that Marcus Houston calls baggage. She's not a divorcee. She doesn't have children and several baby fathers. As far as we know, this is a woman that's just been about her business, been about her grind, and been about the improvement of Black people. Why can't she have her preference? And why can't her preference be to have somebody on her level? I just, like, the people getting... And the other thing as well, like I said, because the men couldn't come for her looks, okay, because she's physically exactly what most men desire, okay, they started trying to kind of throw around the masculine word a little bit. She's giving off masculine vibes, masculine energy. I'm like, yeah, so what if she is? She's had to literally provide for herself to be where she is today. Of course she's going to have masculine energy, which is why she wants a man who's on her level. Because when she has a man that's on her level, that will allow her to rest in her femininity. Because now she can have somebody that can also provide for her. Yes, she brings all of this to the table. So that's there. He can't say that she ain't bringing nothing. She's bringing a whole lot. But now she can rest in her femininity because she can be with a man that's on her level, that will be able to understand where she's coming from, what she's been through to get where she is, and who is prepared to provide for her. A lot of these men who don't have no aspirations, who don't want to do anything with their life, want a woman like Eboni K Williams to be submissive to them. Why want a woman who has worked as hard as she has, who has literally worked herself out of poverty, who is educated, highly educated at that, a multimillionaire, be submissive to a man who has no ambition, who doesn't want more for his life, who is happy to do the same job day in, day out? Why would she be submissive to a man like that? That's obviously not her mentality. That's obviously not the life that she wants for herself. So she needs a man who's going to complement that, because she's already bringing so much. It's just bizarre to me the way people project their insecurities onto people. If you don't want to be that man that she's describing, then don't date a woman like her. Date a woman who is happy with who you are, the way you are. Go where you're loved and appreciated. I don't understand why you're fighting to be accepted by a woman like her when she has a completely different vision for her life and she wants a man who has a similar vision. And there are men that will have that similar vision as her and that she'll be able to build with and get to know. You don't. So go and be with somebody that you're equally yoked with. I just don't understand the outrage. It's just so weird to me. Like I said, she didn't settle in life. So she doesn't have to settle in a partner. And that advice does go to everybody, men included. If you are choosing not to settle in life, then you don't have to settle in a partner. Find somebody that understands your way of thinking, that wants what you want out of life, and build together. She's in her 40s. She hasn't got time to be building, okay? Those of us in our 20s and even early 30s, we've got a little bit more time on our hands. So yes, you can, build with somebody, but you still need to make sure that they're on the same wave as you, that they want the same kind of thing. Because I remember that also requires open communication, because people grow and change as they're exposed to new information, as they have new experiences. People grow and they change and they evolve. So you always need to be making sure that you and your partner still want the same things out of life and that you're still heading in the same direction. But be with somebody that's on your level. Don't be shooting for the stars when you yourself are not prepared to do the work that it takes to get there. It doesn't make sense. Like, it literally just doesn't make sense. And the final point that I'm going to mention is, just because our mothers settled, our grandmothers settled, does not mean that we have to. And even some of our fathers settled. I'm not going to lie, because some mothers and some wives are awful people. Just because your father settled doesn't mean that you have to settle. You are allowed to want more, but you have to be prepared to do the work to have more. And that's the problem I find with this generation of people, is they don't want to do the work. So if you don't want to do the work, don't be with somebody who is prepared to do the work. Don't go in there and contaminate and infuriate and frustrate these people. Leave these people to go and be with people who are like them, and you go and be with somebody who's happy to be exactly where you are for the foreseeable future. Because then you guys can be happy. And if you're genuinely happy, then what Eboni K Williams said shouldn't even have bothered you. And if you're not, then it's either speaking to two things. You need to do something about it, or you need to evaluate what you're doing with your life. That's all I have to say on that. That's my opinion on that. I don't think she said anything wrong. I love what she said. And I actually kind of like the conversation she had with DJ Envy. I like the fact that DJ Envy didn't, mince his words. He kind of stood 10 toes on what he felt was wrong about what she said. But at the end of the day, she's entitled to her prerogative. She can date who she wants. She's earned her way to be where she is. And so she's allowed to desire more for her life and desire a partner who also wants to add to the life that she's currently building. And you're entitled to do the same, sweetheart. Okay? Let's just stop projecting our insecurities onto people and forcing people to think the way we think and do what we do, because they don't have to. If you are genuinely happy with who you are and where you are, stay there. And if you're not, let's do something about it. Let's try and do something about it. Small steps each day, they go a long way. Going right back to the beginning of the conversation where I was mentioning about our diet, okay, exercise, etc., etc. We can do something small each day to make a difference in our lives. And you might not see the results at the end of the week, at the end of the month, but I'm telling you, by the end of that year, you are going to be a different person and you're going to love yourself for it. But you have to be prepared to do the work, and you have to understand that it's not going to be easy. She understands that. That's why she wants to be with somebody who also understands that. She can't be with somebody that doesn't understand that doesn't have that outlook on life and isn't prepared to grind and work and do what needs to be done. And to be honest, if you aspire to have more, neither should you. And that's it for today's show. Okay, I ain't going to talk anymore. It's already been an hour. I think I've said enough. But I hope that you found the show informative, enjoyable, fun. And I'm really curious, like I said, to know your opinions and thoughts on everything I've talked about. So if you have anything you want to share here, please make sure that you do leave it in the comments. I will definitely be responding and reading. And do make sure that you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and various other content that I'm going to be posting. And yeah, I'll be back next week with another episode. No, it won't be another episode, actually. It'll be a recap of the radio show. So you can look out for that and get into the behind the scenes of what it's like doing a radio show with my friends and co-hosts and guests, etc., etc. Until then, guys, bye.